Welcome, everyone, to Tim's Vinyl Confessions. I'm Tim Derling, and a returning guest, my good buddy Deke, host or one of the hosts of the Distortion Den. Hello, sir. How are you?
I'm good, Timmy. How are things, buddy?
I'm doing really good, Deke. Deke's last time Deke was on, we talked about a band that we're both pretty big fans of, Rival Sons, and we talked about this album, Dark Fighter. And now, just a few months later, we're going to talk about the new album, Lightbringer. Uh, very much a companion album, I would say. Don't you think? The artwork looks like they're made to go together.
Yeah, totally.
And can't remember the last time a band put out two albums in the same year. Although I don't know. I don't know what your thoughts are going to be. Deke, we'll get into it. Seems very much like a pool of songs that were all recorded at the same time. I'm not sure about that, but very, very similar in sound.
Um, yeah, I think you know what? I think they were smart in a way, Timmy, to break the album in two because it would have been one massive listen if all these songs were on just Dark Fighter, right?
Oh, I agree. I agree. Yeah.
So
And
I think they were
yeah,
smart to separate the two because it would have been a big time listen. And I think maybe some of those songs for us would have slipped through the cracks.
I think so. I think there would have been a certain amount of fatigue if
Yeah.
they'd have, yeah. And plus, I mean, it's a chance. I think it's a smart idea. I think you're absolutely right because it's a chance to do new artwork. It's a chance for a whole new campaign.
Yep.
Um, bands used to do this all the time in the '70s. I mean, I've often had the thought, how cool would it have been if Led Zeppelin had put out Physical Graffiti as two albums, one in '74 and one '75, one with a different title? We'd have a whole new set of artwork to discuss over the years. So, yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's a good idea. It's a
Good
good idea.
point. Yeah. Yeah.
So once again, it's on Atlantic Records, and I will say that I'm not the biggest fan of how they did. Getting a glare here, but I know what they're going for. It's like the opposite of the Dark Fighter, but it's very hard to read. I find it's very hard to read the text. As a matter of fact, you might look at this at first and think there is no text, but there is. So I'll go through this track by track. Deke, I
Sure.
wrote everything down here. The first track is um, the title. Well, no, I guess it's just the quasi title song. It's the title song of the last album.
Yeah.
This one's called Dark Fighter. At almost 9 minutes long, I think this is a weird way to start the album. What are your thoughts?
Totally weird because when I first listened to it, I was like, well, this is a different way to start an album. Usually you come out of the album with a punch, not so much a
Yeah,
punch with this song. So that's why right away I thought, you know what? I think they split up the recording. They recorded all these songs in one shot. I could be totally wrong, but they separated the two. And this is just a continuation. That's how I had to listen to it because I didn't want to say, oh man, what's going on here? But like Dark Fighter, the actual song, you know what I think, and I know we've talked about him before on last time we spoke, is Scott Holiday. I mean, his guitar work on this song, I think, is probably he's done a lot of great guitar work, folks, but I think this song he really steps it up because he doesn't really go into his fuzz lord blitz. He's playing some real fine acoustic guitar, especially before the solo, before the electric solo. He does like this wind up on the acoustic and then the outro, and it's fantastic. I think it's his probably one of my favorite guitar tunes of his. So well done.
it. Yeah, it's a strange start to the album, but that doesn't mean I don't like it. I think it's an
Yeah.
epic song. I hear bits of Led Zeppelin. I hear a little Deep Purple.
Mhm.
Um, it's got you're right. It's got some cool slide guitar in it. There's some interesting harmonies. Yeah, it's good. It's just a different way to
Yeah.
start. I mean, but like you said, if this was track one of disc two and had this been a double album, maybe it would have made more sense. Again, I'm glad they did it this way. Um, Next track, Mercy. Now you talked about Scott Holiday, who's like the modern guitar hero. I mean, I think that he kind of stands alone. It's very hard these days to have a distinctive sound. This is
Yeah.
a typical Scott Holiday riff. When you start this off, it sounds like a Rival Sons rocker. Um, I actually think this would have made a better opener.
True. I agree with you. That because as soon as you hear Mercy, you know that's the Suns, right?
Yeah,
That's where
absolutely.
people discover this record as their first Rival Sons record, they might be a little indifferent just by how it starts, but to us, we kind of get it. We know the drill where this is coming from, but like you, it's a puzzle with Darkfighter leading it off, but Mercy goes back into that familiar vibe that we know what the Sons do, right?
Yeah, it's got that, it's got that fuzz, it's like Electric Man or any
Yeah,
number of songs. Just starts out with just that cool, really, really fuzzy riff. And he has this ability to come up with really simple riffs that don't seem to use a lot of, I'm going to say, not a lot of notes, not a lot of different, not a lot of, it's not an overly busy riff, is what I'm saying, but it doesn't sound like anything you've heard before. So he's really good at coming up with um, really simple but really effective riffs. A lot of it is the timing, the spaces between, and the way he interacts with the rest of the band. Like a lot of times, it's not until the rest of the band kicks in that you really know where the one is on the song. You
yeah.
start bopping your head to it, and then it comes in. You're like, oh, that's in a different spot than I thought it was.
Mhm.
Great song, and I mean, Jay Buchanan. I mean, that guy, he sounds great. I mean, he's like that guy should be like this band should be top of the charts if nothing else for the vocals of Jay Buchanan. I mean, he's the guy can sing anything.
Like I think said on our first show together when we did the first part of this record was that Jay Buchanan can sing a grocery list and make it sound cool,
Yeah,
right? But the one thing I wanted to get to your point with Scott Holiday is he kind of comes from the guitar player. I'm not a guitar player, but to me, less is more with him.
yeah,
He's just not like shredding away like a lunatic. Like he's putting thought, so he's not going all over the map. But when he has to, he does. But he can also know to take his foot off the gas pedal, so to speak, and he just lets it come to him, because they have a huge sound. I mean, they're all talented musicians. I mean, the whole freaking band, right? So,
yeah. Yeah, you're right. I mean, and I get the feeling listening to his playing, he's got the chops to do it if he has to,
yep.
but he's very, very judicious in how yeah, his solos are utterly unique and they're always just the right thing. They do what you want them to do. And if he were to put on a shredding solo, it wouldn't fit their music.
No,
But if a part of a song calls for a particularly intense part, he can bring it. So
absolutely.
it's yeah, there's a lot to be said for just knowing when not to play and when to play. Um, Next up, I mean, these song titles, you read them, they just sound like Rival Sons song titles.
Yeah,
Redemption.
totally.
This is a slow one. This is storytelling lyrics. They're really good at this. I really like this one.
Yeah, it's got a slower tempo, but when you have a guy like Michael Miley on the drums, he kind of pushes the tempo a little bit so it doesn't like peter out to a you know, a ballad, so to speak. I mean,
Yeah.
like he keeps the wheels on the bus turning, so to speak, in it, and yeah, it's a great track. Another, I mean, we could say about all these songs. I mean, Jay Buchanan, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Just, I'm sure he works hard at it, but he makes it sound
He,
um, effortless. Like he makes it sound like he can just open his mouth and,
yeah,
you know. So the next one, Sweet Life. This one this has got that, yeah, you already talked about Michael Miley on the drums. It's got that fast swinging thing to it. And they have a song called Keep on Swinging, but he does in the drum department. He just keeps things moving and keeps things interesting. And he's a great drummer in a very, very traditional 60s, 70s rock way. But I
yeah,
love the fact that they're these young, relatively younger guys. They've been doing it for a while, but they're not 70-year-old guys that have been doing it since the early 70s, but they play like it. And
yeah.
yeah, what else did I have written about this? That isn't that awful? I made some notes here, Deke, and I cannot read what that says. That sulking gun. That's not it. I don't know what it says.
That's a great track. That's a great track.
That's exactly what it says. Yeah. Next one's interesting. Interesting title because we've got Dark Fighter that
Yep.
starts the album off. It's a title track of an album, just not this album. And now they go all the way back to their first album for the title Before the Fire.
Yeah.
And
Point.
I like this one. It's got acoustic slide. It's got a real spacey intro before it kicks in. I mean, it's just another great song, you
Yeah,
know.
and you know that this one especially totally reminds me, like the first maybe 20 seconds of it reminds me of the Zeppelin song "Thank You." How it just starts. It almost
Yes,
as soon
yes, I agree.
as soon as I heard it, I thought, "Whoa!" But then you know they shift gears, and you know it it doesn't sound like "Thank You," but boy, that beginning, man, when I first heard it, I thought, "Whoa, what are they doing here?" But yeah, you know what? It's another great Rival Sons track. I mean,
Yeah,
you can't go wrong, you know.
yeah. I mean, it sounds like we're kind of, guys. If it sounds like we're kind of saying the same things every song, these guys are they're one of the most consistent bands. They just don't they just don't phone it in. They just
No.
deliver every time out. So the last track, Mosaic, another
Yeah,
fairly lengthy song. I think this one is in the 6 minute range. It's a slower one, but I like it. I think it fits really, really well in with everything else that's on here. And yeah, there's just nothing on here not to like. It's 6 tracks, but they're relatively long tracks. So it's a combination of you get to the end of it and you don't feel like you've been shortchanged. You
no.
feel like you've had a full album's worth, but at the same time, you don't have that fatigue of listening to a full, 80-minute album or whatever.
Yeah, and you know, I think Mosaic would probably be almost next to Dark Fighter, probably my favorite track. I mean, it's got a real fantastic chorus.
Yeah.
And you know, they just bring in their full Rival Sons sound that if you're a fan and you listen to these guys, you know what I'm talking about. I mean, you know, the fuzzed up guitar, the driving drums, the bass, the keyboards, Jay Buchanan. And
Yeah.
I know we're not being paid by Jay Buchanan to sing his praises, but you
No, we're
just
certainly not
gotta,
the first to say it, but yeah, we're just echoing. Guy's a fantastic singer, and he does it without. He doesn't remind me of any one singer in particular.
yeah.
He just has a really, you hear him sing a couple words, and you're like, that's Jay Buchanan. You know exactly who it is. Um,
Exactly. And you know, Tim, I think the only real knock I can have on this album is the sequencing. I mean,
yes,
to the fact of, you know, if they would have went with oh Mercy even to open it and
yeah,
then Dark Fighter, that's the only thing. Like I think first impressions in this day and age with music and streaming, if that's the first song that somebody hears and it doesn't catch them in the first minute, they're probably already dumping the Suns album and moving on to something else through the streams,
yeah,
right? So
yeah.
that's the fan. But as us being fans, and you know, we just got to get more people on board here because you know, seems like we're the only two guys here in Canada that are singing that.
I,
Like, what's going
I've got
on?
had quite a few, guys sit in with me on TBC, and Deke, you're the only one of them that seems to even know who this band is or are into them. So what can I say? We have taste. Um,
Yeah,
and I'll tell you, and I've said this many, many times, I'm very, very, very picky when it comes to newer rock bands
yeah,
because very, very, very seldom do I hear something that perks my ears up. But these guys have just enough of that classic sound, but yet they're bringing it to new, exciting songs on their own. The more I listen to these guys, the more I like them, and they're a band that like's grown within my collection because I always put them on and think I need to listen to these guys more, and then I'll forget about them for a few months, and then they'll put a new album out, and then I start listening to them again. And
yeah,
I don't know. This isn't, and I think that we're kind of in agreement here. I wouldn't give this to someone and say, "You've never heard Rival Son? Pop this in." You
uh-huh.
know,
Yeah,
I don't know if I'd do that, but again, that's sequencing because if Mercy was the opening track, that will catch your ear faster than Dark Fighter.
yeah,
But it sounds to me like this is like, hey, this is for everyone that's already bought Dark Fighter. Here's some more here's some more songs,
mhm.
and you don't have to wait, years upon years upon years before a new album. We've never had to do that with these guys, which is fantastic.
Yeah, and it's smart marketing. It keeps their name out there, and like I said earlier, Timmy, I think it would have just been too huge of a listen because it would have been what an hour album, probably with all the songs combined, maybe four.
And they are long songs. Yeah, it would have been hard to. And you're right. We would have some of those songs would have gone by the wayside as far as the ear fatigue. Those long epic songs. Yeah, we can only process so much at once, I guess. Give it, but yeah, give it to us in small doses, and we'll keep buying them. We'll keep listening to them. So,
Right.
Deke, thanks for doing that. It's always fun to talk about these bands. What's up? What is coming up for you? What have you got going on?
Uh, Nothing too much other than talking to you. Just kind of taking a sabbatical and trying to watch all these podcasts and videos and whatnot. And maybe the Distortion Den will return, but I'm not too sure at this moment. So, I mean, I'm just not in it at this moment. So, like I said, I got to log off here with you, and I see that you got a interview that you just posted with Greg Renoff. I'm interested in watching that.
Thank you.
And yeah, and I mean, you're always at it, and you always got content. So, and that's just something I don't have. So, good on you, pal. But like I
Well,
said,
thank you, Deke. I'll tell you though, if I've got anything to say about it, I think that you and Jax do a fine job on the Distortion Den, and there's always going to be a couple albums to pit against each other.
oh
So
yeah,
if you haven't subscribed to the Distortion Den, please do. There's several episodes already, and it's basically taking usually two great albums and just seeing which one comes out first. I had the privilege of sitting in on one, and yeah. So there you go. But there's still lots of episodes to catch up on. If you haven't watched any of the Distortion Den episodes, you've got time before there's new content. Deke, thanks a lot for tuning in. Folks, if you're a
anytime.
Rival Sons fan, comment, let us know you're out there. And yeah, the new album, Lightbringer, and the almost just as new album, Dark Fighter, both out now. Check it out. It's good stuff. And we will talk to you all later on Tim's Vinyl Confessions.